Under investigation, the suspect in Norway's bombing and shooting attacks is said to have bought 6 tons of fertilizer in May this year. Not constructive, China rejects statements by the Philippines that the country's claim to the South China Sea is baseless. Ongoing violence, NATO carries out more airstrikes on the capital Tripoli, including the bombing of the headquarters of Muammar Gaddafi. And fleeing drought, the population of the world's biggest refugee camp in Kenya hits 300,000 people as many escape starvation in Somalia. I'm James Chow with the World News. Thanks for joining us here. Over in Norway, the death toll now stands at 91 in Friday's twin attacks. A suspected right-wing Christian gunman dressed in police outfits killed at least 84 people in an attack on a youth summer camp of the ruling Labour Party. This happened just hours after a bomb killed 7 more in the capital, Oslo. Zhang Yajing brings us the latest in the investigation.
Norway is mourning its dead. Friday's shooting spree ranks among the worst in history. In addition to the blast outside the Prime Minister's office in Oslo, it was the deadliest day of terror in Western Europe since the 2004 Madrid train bombings that killed 191.
I didn't even think it was going to happen because I thought I was safe. Norway was a safe country, but it looks like it's difficult you never know when you're safe anymore.
Police in the capital maintained a tight cordon around the scene of the bomb blast in the city center. At the island of Utøya, 35 kilometers away from Oslo, investigators are still searching the water for more possible victims. Police have a suspect in custody, saying he has posted right-wing statements on the internet. But Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg cautioned that it's too soon to know the motive for the attacks. Though police did not release the assailant's name, Norwegian national broadcaster NRK identified him as 32-year-old Anders Behring Breivik, a Christian fundamentalist. The Norwegian government will convene on Saturday to discuss ways to assist those who have lost relatives in the attacks. Zhang Yajing, CCTV.
Well, the suspect in Norway's Friday attacks is said to have bought 6 tons of fertilizer in May this year. A farm supply firm says the suspect placed the order through the company. It also adds that the order was small and normal for a standard agricultural producer. Although police did not release the name, Norwegian national broadcaster NRK identified the suspect as 32-year-old Anders Behring Breivik, who is believed to be a right-wing Christian fundamentalist. Well, for more on the violence in Norway on Friday, we're joined on the line by Mr. Christian Havviken, the director of the Peace Research Institute over in Oslo. Mr. Havviken, thank you very much for joining us on what is an extraordinary day in Norwegian history. The suspect in the double attack is a Norwegian himself. He's a far-right extremist. What do you think his motive was in choosing these 2 pillars of democracy, the government buildings and, as the Prime Minister said himself, the finest of Norwegian youth? Do his reactions also reflect the rise of right-wing extremism in Europe today?
I don't think we should exaggerate in terms of seeing this as an indication of the rise of right-wing extremism. There are certainly serious concerns about right-wing extremism in parts of Europe. But in Norway, right-wing extremism has been on the decline over the past 2 decades. What we have here is an attack that seems to be executed by a single individual. He has apparently not have assistance from anybody in the actual execution of the attacks, and it's not even clear that anybody has helped him in the planning of it. This is a person who is very well educated, articulate. He has participated in discussions on the internet, and he has expressed right-wing leanings, but he certainly hasn't expressed anything that would indicate that he would engage in a terrorist act to promote these political views. So I think at the moment what we have is really an individual who has radical, extraordinary radical and militant worldviews, is willing to convert these worldviews into action, and has also had the competence and the ability to carry out a terrorist attack in the heart of Norwegian political institutions, which have caused an unprecedented number of deaths.
Let's also talk about the extraordinary reaction right around the world, because the international community has, of course, come out very strongly to condemn the attacks. Now, what shocked many people is that how could this happen in a country like Norway, which has always been a peace mediator and has always been very peaceful in itself. But given that it only took one person to make this happen, what can the Norwegian government do to prevent such tragedies from happening again?
Well, this is going to be one of the trickier issues to deal with in the debate that we shall have in the few weeks and months ahead of us here in Norway. As you already indicate in your question, the fact that this is one person's work does not make it easy to come up with measures. In fact, most of the tools that we have in the toolbox of counter-terrorism seem to be woefully inadequate in response to this. It's not clear that the intelligence community, the security apparatus, should have been able to identify this person and his intentions. He has basically engaged in fairly peaceful, although somewhat right-wing extremist political debate. He has purchased fertilizer, which is an entirely legal product. He has had the permission to carry a couple of different types of handguns, and he has probably been able to acquire an additional machine gun in the illegal market. But there are very few things in the behavior and the political stance of this person that would pinpoint him as a potential terrorist. What we have heard from the government so far is that we need now to first and foremost concentrate on the victims and those who have been affected by the terrorist acts. We need to think carefully about how we want to proceed in order to maintain the democratic values and the openness of the political discourse in Norway. Norway is a place where you can run into the Prime Minister on the street on a regular weekday. That may, of course, change in response to yesterday's attack. But I do think that there is a strong will cutting across the political parties in Norway not to let yesterday's terror frighten Norwegian politicians and the Norwegian public into locking ourselves in and closing down on political debates of all sorts.
I need to ask you this one question also, because it's been about 24 hours since the attack, but apart from the very raw emotions, there's been a very calm and collected political leadership emerging from the Norwegian government over there. One of the extraordinary statements that the Prime Minister made was that no bullet or no bomb will scare Norway from being Norway in the future. My question is this: how are you going to heal people-wise, and how is the government going to continue promoting democracy in an environment like this, and what exactly is going to change? Because something obviously will change from this day on. What will change in the Norwegian psyche after this?
Oh, it is clear that this will have a significant impact on the Norwegian political debate and on the Norwegian political culture. Exactly what that impact will be is pretty difficult to say at the moment. But the fact that this is an attack that was not carried out by an organized group, not carried out by a group that has significant support within segments of the Norwegian population, but rather a standalone individual at the far fringes of the Norwegian political spectrum, does make healing somewhat easier. This is not representative of any political position. Furthermore, I also think it, and we can already see this in the debate here in Norway, the fact that one has been able to identify, pin down, and take into custody the perpetrator who is now currently undergoing interrogation. That very fact in itself does help the healing process that will be necessary. But of course, this will be a long-drawn process, and this has been an absolute shock to Norwegian society, which is, I would say, at the moment, probably somewhat traumatized, and that trauma will have to be dealt with through multiple measures, not only political but also social and other measures in the weeks and months ahead.
Well, we of course wish you the very best as Norway begins that very difficult journey ahead. Christian Harviken, Director of the Peace Institute over in Oslo, thank you very much for joining us there. Well, the majority of the deaths on Friday's attacks came on an island close to the capital, Oslo. 84 young people were shot dead there by the extremist gunmen. Meanwhile, the leader of the political youth movement, who was on the island at the time of the attack, has spoken about his experiences.
Although it was raining when we woke up yesterday, we met Gro Harlem Brundtland, who lit up the island and made us all very excited. It was Utoya at its best. Shortly after, we experienced the most horrible tragedy, which was beyond our worst nightmare. We have lost many of our closest friends and many excellent members. Although the gunmen took their lives away, he can never take away what they believed in and were passionate about. They believed in tolerance and anti-racism.
We continue our coverage on Friday's double attacks over in Norway. Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg has outlined his government's response to the country's worst attack since the Second World War. He vowed that terrorists will not destroy Norway, adding that his priority is to ensure that all affected can get the necessary support. He knows that the government will investigate the motive behind the attack and do its best to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. Jens Stoltenberg also confirmed that police have arrested a 32-year-old Norwegian as the main suspect in the shooting and the bombing. The Prime Minister paid tribute to those who have been killed and the emergency workers who tried to save their lives. Stoltenberg said messages of support from around the world have helped his country and his people. He urged intelligence agencies worldwide now to work together. And he also says the military has been assisting the police to help maintain peace and stability at this juncture.
Prime Minister, Norway is going through an intense period of sadness and mourning. What are you doing to help your country to address these issues and to overcome these issues? Justice Minister, the investigation has been, I guess, ongoing for the last 24 hours intensely. Can you tell me where the investigation is at and whether you would see it as a success?
Well, the investigation is a success when we have, when we are able to tell who is behind this cruel act of violence. And the police has already arrested one person, and that gives them at least a good basis for continuing the investigations. And of course it is very important that those who are behind one or several persons are sentenced according to Norwegian law in the Norwegian system of justice. I think the responsibility of me as Prime Minister and the rest of the government is to be present, is to convey to the Norwegian people the solidarity, the very strong human feelings we all feel. Norway is a small country, but we are a proud country. And we are all very close, especially in times like this. And I think that all Norwegians feel very close to those who are victims of the violence in Oslo and at the youth camp of the Young Labour Party at Utøya.
Mr. Stoltenberg, your entire government is to meet this afternoon. What are the major decisions you see as necessary right away?
The government will meet later on today for several reasons. One is just to have the government in one room to be able to discuss and to exchange views on how we are proceeding on different tasks, like for instance helping people, like assisting those who have lost their nearest ones in the attacks, but also to, for instance, address the question of the threat level. So we are convening a meeting in the government just in a way have the status and to discuss which further measures we might take today and the days to follow.
Another question, if I may. How big a problem are right-wing extremists here in Norway, and what is your government doing to address this problem?
Compared to other countries, I will not say that we have a big problem with right-wing extremists in Norway. But we have had some groups, we have followed them before, and our police is aware of that there are some